Chào mừng quý vị quay trở lại với phần cuối cùng của chương trình Tôi và Việt Nam trên kênh FBNC ngày hôm nay với phần trò chuyện cùng anh Alex Titolo là tùy viên văn hóa giáo dục và báo chí của Tổng lãnh sự quán Hoa Kỳ tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh. Welcome back.
Good.
I know right now that you're also supporting the media developments of Vietnam by sending journalists to America for training. So what would be some of the results that make you proud from that programs?
Supporting journalists and editors going to the United States on exchange programs is similar to exchange programs we run for government officials, for university officials, for business leaders. It's part of, as I talked about a bit earlier, encouraging the growth in the comprehensive partnership, looking at all of the sectors of our relationship and trying to support them through exchange programs. I think that if you look at what you and your colleagues at FBNC have built here, it's a great example of how exchanging information with the United States can lead to new models, new ideas. You know, you take some things that have been done in the United States and you import them into Vietnam, and it's a good way to help Vietnam further engage with the world. You know, Vietnam has become, you know, part of the global economy over the last 20 years, and it's been amazing to see things like FBNC be built. And you know, we think that part of the reason for that is that we, as the United States government, have committed so much to exchange programs.
Would there be more exchange programs in this coming year?
So we are always looking for good exchange program candidates, as I said, from the university level through the PhD level. One of the things that we're very excited about this year and over the next several years is that President Obama has announced the Young Southeast Asia Leaders Initiative. This is part of the Rebalanced Asia that President Obama and his foreign policy team have worked so hard on over the last several years. Our role as the Consulate General here is to support that, and one way is through exchange programs. So we've opened up a lot of new exchange programs over the last several months as part of this Young Southeast Asia Leaders Initiative. I encourage people to visit our website and learn more about the programs. They are designed to take our exchange programs to the next level, to expand opportunities, and to focus on youth, because we know that that is where the future of relationship lies. It's with the young people of both of our countries who are getting to know each other better now.
Talking about young people, a lot of U.S. educated students who came back here and they start their own business.
Yeah.
You know, doing startup and, you know, have great ideas for the economy here in Vietnam. And the atmosphere, the spirit of entrepreneurship here in Vietnam right now is very high. Yeah. It's come from the fact that a lot of, you know, founders of startup are U.S. educated students. Yeah. And I know from your side, you did sponsor Việt Youth Entrepreneur, which is a, you know, a startup program. So right now, any specific plan on supporting the local startup environment?
So you mentioned Việt Youth Entrepreneurs. We supported their boot camp over the summer. They're a great organization. We've worked with Startup.vn for a series of startup competitions, and we're going to continue to do that. You know, we've talked a lot about higher education today, and now talking about entrepreneurship. Those are, in my view, two of the signatures of the United States, two of the things that we're most proud of in the United States, and if I can say that, I think that we do the best.
Yeah, but great inspiration for young people here.
But they're not disconnected. They're not two separate things. There's a connection between the two of them, which is that our educational system encourages creative thinking. It encourages the entrepreneurial spirit. It encourages students to, of course, learn the course material and study what's on the page in front of them, but also to think outside the box. And so if you look at what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, of course it's having good business skills, but it's also that creativity to think about a new idea that no one else has thought of. That comes from our educational system, starting at a very early time in a child's education. You know, you know, there are the standard courses that everyone takes, just like in every country. But infused into each of them is this concept that you have to think for yourself, you have to be able to speak for yourself, you have to be able to sell your ideas. And so it's the link between education and entrepreneurship that is maybe not so clear from an outside perspective, but in the United States they go hand in hand. If you think back to Secretary Kerry's visit here to Ho Chi Minh City in December of last year. Remember, he gave a speech at the American Center, and the last line, his closing line, was basically, "Thank you to all the entrepreneurs. You're the ones who are creating the future."
Yes.
Because they're the ones that are creating new jobs. They're the ones that are creating new ideas, new industries even. And that entrepreneurial spirit that is so much a part of America, it makes me really proud to see it flourishing here in Vietnam.
20 years of relationship is an amazing journey. So what's next?
What's next? Let's talk about the next 20 years. You know, let's talk about where we want to be 20 years from now. You know, if you're going back to the number of students in the United States, you know, 20 years ago it was less than 1,000. Now it's 16,500. What, you know, the sky is the limit in terms of how much educational exchanges we can have. If you look at, you know, 20 years ago, there was not a lot of U.S. investment here, of course. But normalization of relations, Vietnam joins the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Our bilateral trade agreement, of course, was critical to that. And now, if you look, you know, right here in Ho Chi Minh City and surrounding provinces, some of the biggest U.S. firms in the world are now here. They are generating profit for U.S. companies, and they're employing Vietnamese people in good jobs. They're importing the U.S. way of doing business into Vietnam, which we think is so critical because it's all about investing in people. And so some of these young entrepreneurs you mentioned, they learn that working in a U.S. company, and then when they start their own company, that's the philosophy that they bring. And so the jobs they create are good jobs. They treat their people well. They invest in people. They understand the importance of continuing education, for example. So I think if we look 20 years from now, looking at the economic trajectory, there's great potential. I mean, you know, our trade relationship is booming. You know, when TPP is finalized, that'll open up even greater possibilities for trade in both directions. So, you know, it's been a great 20 years, and now we need to start thinking about the next 20.
So in terms of education relationships, what is your specific goal for the next year?
I think that our goal for every year is to try to increase linkages in terms of at the people-to-people level, more Vietnamese students going to the United States. I would love to see more American students come here to Vietnam.
Yeah.
That number is still relatively low, and so we very much want to try to encourage that more.
How do you attract them?
That's a really good question. It has to. That really is the responsibility, to a large extent, of the Vietnamese institutions. You know, I meet with Vietnamese universities, and they, I think that they understand the importance of it, but they have to be the ones, again, going back to the concept of universities attracting customers, they have to sell themselves. You know, a U.S. student can go anywhere in the world to study abroad, just like a Vietnamese student can travel anywhere. Why did Vietnamese students choose the U.S.? And then why would a U.S. student choose Vietnam? That's a question that a university has to be able to answer. Now, personally, I think coming here as a U.S. university student would be an amazing opportunity. There's so much to see here in Vietnam. There's so much to learn about. It's an amazing culture. It's a very dynamic place. There are a lot of changes. But if universities want to attract foreign students, they have to figure out how to do that.
What is the importance of connecting three, let's say, between academia and industry and the government in terms of supporting educations and innovation and entrepreneurship?
Right. We look at those three entities as the three sort of pillars: academia, government, and the private sector. You know, when we held the Vietnam Education Dialogue Conference this summer in conjunction with Professor Ngo Bao Châu, we talked a lot about this because it is industry that has a need for innovation. It is industry that creates jobs. And so our academic institutions listen very much to industry in terms of what they need for graduates. What type of cutting-edge research at academic institutions can then be applied in the private sector to create economic growth and to create jobs. Government's role is to facilitate that by talking to both of them, and then sometimes by sponsoring research. So the U.S. government sponsors cutting-edge research in various fields. Our Defense Department is one of the largest sponsors of research, but also, for example, in healthcare, National Institutes of Health is a huge sponsor of academic research. And so that link, that triangle, if you will, between academia, government, and the private sector is what allows us to innovate. It's what allows us to create new ideas. You know, the internet was invented by a research team in the United States government, but obviously, the economic application of it is now everywhere by virtually every company in the world. And so it's a great example of how those three are connected. And they have to be talking to each other. It has to be a dialogue between those three entities.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I hope to join some of your exchange programs later in the
Great.
future.
Great.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là những chia sẻ của anh Alex Titolo, là tùy viên văn hóa, giáo dục và báo chí của Tổng lãnh sự quán Hoa Kỳ tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh. Quý vị có thể xem lại chương trình này trên website fbnc.vn hoặc là facebook.com/tôi về Việt Nam. Chương trình xin được phép khép lại tại đây. Hẹn gặp lại quý vị và các bạn trong những chương trình lần sau.